everybody. My name is Gloria Martinez. I'm your Vice President of Elementary Schools here at UTLA. And you might have guessed it, I am not Alex Caputo Pearl. I'm actually filling in for him today. And I wanted to give you an overview of today's show. I wanted to give you an overview of today's LA School Voice show. I'm very excited to announce that we will be speaking with longtime champion and our brand new elected school board member, Miss Jackie Goldberg. Ms. Jackie Goldberg will be here to talk about her grassroots campaign, Measure EE, and also talk about what are her priorities now that she officially takes office tomorrow. We're super excited about that. I want to remind you to follow us at UTLA Now on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as Facebook. And every Monday around this time, we go Facebook Live with some, where you can give some comments. You can also email questions to us at laschoolvoice@utla.net. That's laschoolvoice@utla.net. But we know how important social media is, and this is a great way to really carry out our message. So we're also going to be talking with members and parents today. We have Alicia Baltazar. She is a parent at Freeze Avenue Elementary School. We're also going to be joined by Elizabeth Untalan, who is a teacher at Catskill Elementary School, as well as Cheryl Zarate, who is a teacher and a parent. She teaches at King Middle School and has a child that attends school in LAUSD. But I wanted to share, before we bring them on, I wanted to share a little bit about my experience walking for Measure EE this weekend. I've been phone banking for Measure EE, and I've also been walking. This weekend I walked out of Inner City Struggle out in Boyle Heights. East area is my home area, and we had a great turnout from East and our members. But as I was door knocking with a member, Yolanda Tamayo, I came across one of my former students, a student that I had 14 years ago. Marco, if you're watching this, hi. And we were talking about, he asked me if I was still in the classroom, and it was very touching when he was a little bit saddened that I'm currently on leave out of the classroom, but I was telling him of the work that we're doing. And one of the things that Marco shared with me, he said, I'm doing construction work now, and he tried college and it just wasn't for him, and I totally understand that. And I think this is why smaller class sizes, this is why I think passing Measure EE to really help us free up some funds into important, some of these programs that are so important to our students, arts, vocational studies, and just a lot of the resources that our students need. So, it was great to get back out in the neighborhood that I taught for so many years, and it was just wonderful running into a former student. He's a voting age now, because 14 years ago, that was a while ago. He's a voting age now. Of course, we took a selfie and sent it over to his mom, and he encouraged, I encouraged him to vote yes on EE. He asked a little bit about it, and then as soon as I told him, that I was going back to our schools, he's like, oh, yes, miss, of course. So it's just, such a touching story, and, as we door knock and phone call, people are just really still interested in hearing about our struggles, because we know that our strike was just like the first attempt to really bring light to the educational issue in LA. So with that, I'd like to bring our first guest. And just a reminder that you can follow us at UTLA Now on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But with me is is Alicia Baltazar.
Hello, welcome.
She is a parent at Freeze Avenue Elementary. We have Elizabeth Untalan, who is a teacher at Catskill Elementary School. And we have Cheryl, who by her shirt you notice that she is a teacher at King Middle School, but she's also a parent of an LAUSD student. So I just wanted, ladies, if you don't mind sharing with me a couple of things. I wanted to ask you, first of all, what EE means to you, right? And how that translates to your needs at the schools that you're at or your children are at, and also what EE means for your community as well. So Alicia, why don't I start with you? Tell us a little bit about, what EE means to you, and then if you don't mind telling us a little bit about your volunteering efforts.
No problem. So to me, it means smaller class sizes, of course. It means the nurses, it means the librarians. But for me, it also means a lot more. It means investing in our children's futures.
Right.
Okay, so I have been door knocking in East LA, but this morning in Wilmington, I've also got to go to all the parent centers, all the elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, and make sure that everybody understands what they're voting for and what it means.
Yeah.
See, so we get a lot of feedback where a lot of people are worried about their rents. about the price of the rents going up. And that's an understandable thing as we struggle every month to pay our rents, and I understand nobody wants that property tax to go up. However, what I explain to people is when your neighborhood school crumbles, your property value crumbles with it. So in that, your rent is going to end up going up. This way, when you invest in your schools, you invest in your communities. It then brings the property values of the houses around it up. And that's exactly what we need to do for our children.
Yeah, I mean, when you're purchasing a home or when you're looking for a place to live, the first thing you look at is what kind of schools are around and you know, how are they rated. So it just makes perfect sense to look at this in an investment kind of way, long-term investment.
And so I'm a homeowner at Highland Park, and property taxes are just going up crazy over there. And so, you know, I'm willing to, now that I know that my property tax is going to go into schools, into our community, I'm willing to contribute to that. My son will be going to Buchanan Elementary for kindergarten, and so I really want to invest in his future for that.
And what school is he at right now?
He's in Glassell Park, Early Ed Center.
Oh, nice. And so what does it mean for your son as a parent? Because you also get to see the inside, right? You're in the school site, but you're also a parent. What does that translate for you, for your child, to also benefit from Measure EE?
Well, seeing what happens from being in a small early ed center with 20 students or so to being in middle school with 33, 35 students, I'm like frightened for him. And so I don't want that future for him. I want him to feel comfortable with his teachers, with his classmates, to feel safe. Because having a large classroom, it's really that safety issue.
And for those that don't know, Measure EE will bring in how much, ladies? How much a year in revenue?
$500
million, right? $500 million,
Right.
which will actually get to that class size number, right? That battle that we fought so hard for over the 6 days that we were on strike, right? So class size is important. From early education, right, 0 to 5, but it's even more important as they grow into the upper grades and secondary. So, Elizabeth, do you mind telling us a little bit about the Catskill struggle, and then like what motivated you to come out and vote yes and volunteer for Measure EE?
Well, the Catskill struggle is this. In our school, we have high student to teacher ratios, and we have empty classrooms. So if you're thinking about Measure EE, bringing down the classroom ratio, and those kids can be spread out to the other classrooms, then you wouldn't have this problem with co-location. I mean, it's funny because when I was hired, the ratio was 20-1 in primary.
Right.
And then it changed, you know, because of all these budget issues. But we need to go back to how it was, and also with Measure EE, you want to hire high-quality teachers who are going to pour back into the community as well. So it's really important for myself to make sure that this Measure EE is passed, and that, you know, I know there's opposition out there when you listen to the radio or when you watch a commercial or you get a flyer. But you got to think about this long-term wise, and you're building a legacy. You're looking at this not just immediate results, but you're looking at this down the line. How is this going to change and remold and reshape the socioeconomic ecosystem, as you will?
Right.
So that was one of the key points that I was hitting on this morning when we were in the high schools recruiting people to do door knocking and stuff. A lot of the students were saying, well, we're only 16, we can't vote. And I said, yes, you're too young to vote, but you're not too young to have a voice. You're not too young to stand up and tell that person to vote and that person to vote. And I told them, you know, think about it like this. You're a senior right now. You're on your way to college. And in a few years, you're going to be having children that are going to be coming to the school system. Right now is your opportunity to make a difference in that school system. What kind of school did you go to? What kind of school do you want your children to go to? What are you willing to do for that now?
And we started that civic engagement when we had so many students out on the strike line with us, right? So like these conversations are just like a natural progression of them. Did you want to, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what you were saying about recruiting teachers. And I just want to also add retaining the teachers, because burnout rate is real. I was just having a conversation with my teacher friends, hello team, that, you know, we're just burned out. It's May, first of all, and the social emotional angst of my middle school kids is it's extreme right now. And so we're like, where are the counselors? And the counselor's busy with her stuff too. And just having more resources and more counselors on campus will probably alleviate that stress, alleviate the students' social emotional stress as well.
And we all know it takes, like what that adage says, and we all know it takes a village. It takes a village to raise all our children in our community.
Yeah.
So just to have
Absolutely.
that one sole teacher and maybe that one school nurse who comes once, whatever the school has set up, it just feels so unequitable. And
And for me, being a parent volunteer, I'm on campus 5 days a week. And so from being in the office, being in the different classrooms, and being on campus and in the cafeterias and stuff, I see our students' needs firsthand. That's why I became a Reclaim Our Schools LA member a year ago, to start fighting back, to start saying, hey, our kids need the nurse more than one day a week. Our office can't keep playing nurse to these people.
Well, this is, a Measure EE is a continuum of our struggle that we started.
Right.
So we went out to Ross LA, we went out to community, right? And we heard exactly what you ladies are stating, that, our teachers were saying the burnout, because I'm having to be psychologist and counselor and social
Wearing
worker.
too many hats.
And I'm having to invest by buying stuff for my classroom and stuff, right? So, and I think one of you, when we were talking before, I think they call it in pre-production, when we were having a conversation about, like, when a teacher says, I already invest X amount into my, because, it's, we're always buying better quality pencils. During flu season, I was always asking for donations on Kleenex versus that rough, So, but one of you had a really good response about that. So can you tell us?
That was me, and it was because at first I wasn't too happy about Measure E. I thought, wait, you're going to make the teachers pay for their own raises? And I'm fortunate to have a teacher at our school that's a really big mentor to me. And she told me, she said, no, Miss Hill, don't look at it that way. She said, I'm a teacher who puts hundreds of dollars into my classroom, but I can only affect the children in my classroom. I can't legally go pay for the psychiatrist or the nurse or the librarian. But this is my way of contributing to that and paying for that nurse, paying for that school psychologist, because in the end, that's what I need in order to run a successful classroom.
And
I need my team.
And you basically what you're doing is, instead of just your own classroom, which is what I do, I put a lot of time and money to get those results I want at the end of the school year, to push all those children up to, grade level. But this is going to ripple out, having this Measure E passed.
I just went to Smart and Final yesterday and got packs of snacks because it's testing time. I want my kids to do well on their test, and that's like $50.
Easily.
And so if Measure EE is going to raise property tax for a few $100s a year, $50 for my day. I mean,
and then it's you meant it's 16 cents per square foot, right? That's the tax. But what it does is, then the average homeowner will pay around $230 or so. But what it does is it allows us to leverage to make sure that the LA skyline is also paying in, right? So when I read the statistic of comes out to about $18, and this is average. There's some of us who have bigger properties, and some of us who have smaller properties, or some of us who are renters, right? We talked about that earlier. But what it means is that, then when I see the statistic of $18 a month, $230 a year, but the U.S. Bank Tower has to pay $229,000 in tax, then I think it's time, for us to actually go after big business and corporations. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you coming by, and I appreciate you volunteering. I'm going to call Jackie up next, but I do want to remind folks. That we have door knocking, precinct walking all throughout the city. So we have very targeted voter turnout, and that is happening this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. And then the big Get Out the Vote weekend is June 1st and June 2nd. And again, you can go on utla.net for the list of locations. A lot of schools are doing pushes. I know Lorena Avenue Elementary was out there in East area in full force on Saturday. So, getting a group, it's always more fun, right, to come out together as a group. So you can still volunteer to sign up to walk either around your neighborhood, around an area, a close a nearby location near your school or area, either this Saturday or Sunday. And of course, the big final push, get out the vote weekend, June 1st and June 2nd. So joining me now, first of all, let me congratulate. This woman does not need an introduction. Miss Jackie Goldberg, who just won an election a little bit under a week ago.
Yep.
Okay, so Jackie, I just want to ask you, like, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling elated. I mean, it's extraordinary. I've been in elected office before. I don't think I've ever gotten 71% of the vote in a contested election. We actually won every precinct in the entire district, which is really wonderful. And what it says is that I think people are ready for change. They want some leadership that is talking about the needs of kids and the needs of schools, and they want someone to help them raise the kinds of taxes that we need to raise in order to fully fund public education once again.
And that 71% is only increasing. So Jackie, I did mention that you were going to talk to us about your grassroots campaign. So what do you think made it such a success?
Well, I think a number of things, but probably the most important is that we had almost 1,000 volunteers, and that's in addition to the independent expenditure volunteers. So just my own campaign had about 1,000 volunteers. And we walked the Southeast and we walked the Northeast really virtually every weekend.
Yeah.
And some people walked after they were teaching in the Southeast in the afternoons on school days. So we had a lot of contact. And I think it's very important to do that because mail is wonderful. But it's much different when you hear someone say, hi, my name is, and I'm a volunteer for, and here's why I'm voting for it. When people did that, it made people feel connected to the campaign. Some people told me when I knocked on doors that they had never in their whole lives had any elected official ever knock on their doors.
Oh, wow.
So I think that the grassrootsy part of it, we had to raise money, so it wasn't entirely grassroots.
Right.
But the fact that we had that many volunteers who were willing to spend their time and go knock on doors literally all the time and also to make phone calls. We phone called 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And between that, we were contacting literally thousands of voters. I think that's what made the difference.
That's fantastic, Jackie. So, you actually are going to get sworn in tomorrow.
Yes.
So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
I know that was expedited a little bit, but we're very excited. I think that, the schools that I've been visiting, the members that I've been having conversations with, we're all very hopeful, about your election and what it means for our students. So talk to me a little bit about your priorities if Measure EE passes.
Yeah.
And then, what would the contrast be if Measure EE doesn't pass? So let's start off with why we need Measure EE.
Well, Measure EE would provide $500 million. That's $500 million for those of us who keep thinking about this. Let's just say we took 20% of that. Let's say that we took $100 million. That's 1,000 new classroom teachers. 1,000 new classroom teachers is a beginning of the real investment in reducing class size. People tell me all the time, oh, class size doesn't make a difference. Well, I got news for you. If it doesn't make a difference, then why are the rich spending $40,000 to have their kids in a class of 12?
Right.
It's because it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. It makes a social-emotional difference.
Right.
It makes a difference in terms of helping children who may have some behavior issues get more attention so that they have fewer of them. But most of all, it means that students struggling in school will have an opportunity to get help when they need it, as opposed to, we ran out of time, there were too many kids, I didn't even get to everybody in the same class period. I'm a secondary teacher, so we talk about class periods.
Right.
And actually, that's where the biggest class sizes are in secondary. And when you have secondary students who are struggling and you have huge class sizes, every day you go home as a teacher that you didn't reach everybody, and it makes you feel terrible.
Yeah, it really does. And actually, this was, Cheryl, Elizabeth, and Alicia spoke to this, right? Like, how do we connect with our students? Because our students need that individualized attention. We should be checking in with our students, if not daily, more often. But because of the class size and because we have such big numbers, and also because we don't have the services at our school site, right? It's sometimes hard to do so. But I just want to remind everybody that we do this every Monday around this time, and I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to email them to laschoolvoice@utla.net. If you are obviously Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at UTLA Now. And then I mentioned precinct walking this weekend, and then the big Get Out the Vote on June 1st and June 2nd. Someone's already on summer mode. June 1st and June 2nd. You can check utla.net with the locations and to sign up. So, Jackie, I want to ask you, you mentioned 1,000 volunteers. I know that we had an increase of volunteers from UTLA come out. I mean, it was great to see. On a day that I didn't walk, I was driving around to run errands and seeing people in red, and I'm like, oh, they're voting, they're walking for Jackie, so that was great. So I wanted to ask you, what will be your first priority as you take oath for office tomorrow?
Well, I have a lot of priorities, actually, that are all early on. My first real priority is to get Measure EE passed, and that's what I will be spending the next couple of weeks doing. And I've asked a lot of the people who volunteered in my campaign to volunteer to do EE because, if we have that money, we can do a lot of things that we can't do without it. But some of my priorities are around special education. We have too many young people in special education with temporary teachers or with substitute teachers. We don't have enough of them. We don't have enough special ed teaching assistants. We need more of those as well. We are also, in my opinion, short psychiatric social workers, so I want to see if there's a way that we can add more of those. I've been hopefully going to work with the County of Los Angeles because they have a lot of mental health dollars.
Right.
So that's on my list because, really, it's very much harder to grow up and be a teenager today than it was when I was a teenager. And I thought it was hard then.
Yeah.
But, now there's so many pressures on young people. And we need to be giving them a whole lot more support in terms of social and emotional stability than we have now. I want to work with the city and the county on homeless students because we have a lot of them in Board District 5. And we need to be making sure that we're dealing with their needs as well as foster students. I have a very strong feeling about foster students since I was the Children's Services Deputy for Supervisor Gloria Molina. And she had me working on foster kid issues. And they are huge numbers of issues there. But I think probably my most important one will be to get my arms around the budget and to make sure that we're getting accurate information and that I try to press for the district to be far more transparent than it is in everything it does. We do too much behind closed doors. Too many things are on consent calendars that nobody ever talks about or says what they're about. And we need to be having more broad frame discussions at school board meetings so that parents and family members, and even if you're not, even if you're just a tax-paying citizen, you have an opportunity to know what's going on and how we're spending our money and why we're spending it the way we spend it.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jackie, because, as and first of all, I just have a feeling that now the viewership of those school board meetings is about to increase. But, I want to thank you for bringing that up because as I speak with members and I go out to school visits, one of the big hangups around Measure EE is the accountability piece.
Yes.
And I think after your election, everyone's kind of like, okay, I feel better. So and you touched upon it right now, but what does it mean for you to hold people accountable around, an additional $500 million? What's that going to look like?
Well, first of all, there will be a citizens committee.
Yeah.
And that's very important for you to understand because that citizens committee will not be made up of people who are employees of the district. It will not be made up of people who have a vested interest, quote unquote, in being vendors or anything else like that. These will be folks who have the skill to make sure that the district spends the money as it was intended, which is on our schools.
Yeah.
You see, my goal is to make sure that a good portion of this money ends up in the schools as discretionary money. Yeah. And the rest of it goes to make sure that all parts of the contract for all our employees, UTLA, of course, but we have many more bargaining units than that. And they've all bargained. And they need to make sure that their contracts are fully funded. So that's the other part of it that makes a lot to me, is to make sure we do that as well.
Thank you. I know we all feel, and there was a collective sigh of relief once you won on Tuesday. We're like, okay, now, you know, the uneasiness around this accountability piece is no longer. So thank you for saying that. And then, you know, before we wrap up, and just before we wrap up, I want to remind you guys again, this is super important. What we started in January only is continuing through Measure EE, and you know, this is our local approach, but we also have Schools and Communities First Act, which will be coming up next November, which is our state piece, which is, you know, trying to chip away at the corporate tax loopholes. But so I want to remind you, UTLA.net, we have door knocking this Saturday and Sunday, as well as June 1st and June 2nd. So please click on the links for us to make sure that we have you door knocking with us. But before I let you go, Jackie, what would you like to say to all the teachers and educators and parents that supported you during this time?
Muchísimas gracias. There's really no way to thank you enough. You know, but that important step of getting me elected is really just the beginning. If we do not raise money, if we do not go from about $9,500 or $10,000 a student per year to being close to maybe like what New York spends, they spend $22,000 a year per kid. We need to be moving in that direction dramatically, because if we don't do that, if I just get elected and we don't raise money, there's not a lot you can do. You can make things better with the money we have, and I'm committed to that, but you don't decrease class sizes, you don't have more teaching assistants, you don't make sure that everybody gets health care, you don't do the things that make a school district thrive, and it has to thrive because our children are worth it. You know, 70% of this tax will come from corporations. Corporations who have been getting off easy since 1978, when Proposition 13 froze their taxes. Right there at 1978. You go to Disneyland, they're paying 1978 property taxes. Are you paying 1978 ticket prices?
No.
Oh, no. If you go to any of the bank buildings downtown, they're charging you fees for everything. Everything they can find a fee to charge you on, they're charging you on, and they're paying 1978 property taxes. Is that a good idea? No. We need to tell the corporate businesses of this community, you made your money here, now put some back in our children, and do it right now, and stop opposing it, and stop lying to people. I got a letter in the mail at my house saying that seniors are going to be harmed dramatically by this proposition. Seniors are exempt. And then you read all the way down on both sides, and finally in small print in the bottom, you know what it says? You're going to have to apply for the exemption.
Yeah.
Oh, big deal.
Yeah, which is typical of any exemption.
Right.
Yeah.
So please, all those people who are telling you to vote no, don't pay any attention to them. They are liars and cheats, and they are people who have a lot of wealth, and their greed is endless, and they don't want to spend anything on our children, even though they made their billions here in California.
Jackie.
How do I really feel?
We have a mic that Jackie Goldberg can drop right now. You know, this is great. Thank you so much. I think, you know, with the parents and the teachers and, you know, Jackie here with us, you can see the emotion and, you know, the passion behind Measure EE and this continuum of our struggle, right, to fund education in Los Angeles, to bring our students the resources that they need, to bring down the class size that they deserve. Thank you for that. You know, and the class size is down to, you know, where we can actually make a difference. You know, I'm a special ed teacher, and I'm hearing about all of the issues that are coming across on special ed. And so I thank you for making our students a priority. I look forward. I know that you haven't had a minute to rest, so I apologize about expediting the, well, not really, about expediting your oath tomorrow. And I look forward to you serving. I look forward to getting you that money that you need and seeing you be a champion for all members of LAUSD, all students, all communities, and schools across the city. So click on the link, utla.net, to volunteer starting this weekend and June 1st and June 2nd. Make sure that if you're eligible to vote yes on Measure EE. The mail-in ballots have already dropped. I know I've received mine. Make sure you check in with brothers and sisters and your in-laws, as well as your parents. And of course, you know, we will have a leafleting this Thursday. I'm getting my dates confused, excuse me. This Thursday, we're having a leaflet. You'll pick up your materials this Wednesday. our members to have, our school sites to have a leafleting, Thursdays to engage with parents. We did such a fantastic job on that during the strike, which is one of the reasons why we were so successful, and which is one of the reasons why we had 30,000 members, but also 30,000 community members with us. Let's go out and have those conversations. If you're unsure about something, guys, don't worry about having all the answers. Just say, I will, let me get back to you. But speak to what Measure EE, how that will transfer to your classroom and how that will make a difference in your school community. If you have any questions, you want to go to laschoolvoice@utla.net, and we can respond with those answers that will help you communicate and engage with more parents. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in on Monday around this time next week. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you so much.